Doug Kaufman, Joshua Borgart,
Here.
Chad Graham.
Here, quorum is present. Gonna look to the commission for approval of minutes.
Move to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second.
Any discussion of the motion? All in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. At this point, I'm going to open tonight's meeting for Hear the Public. This would be the part of the meeting where anybody in the audience can give just general public comment on anything not currently on tonight's agenda. If there's any public comment, please step to the mic with your name and address.
Kyle Voigtlander, 840 4th Street West, Kalispell, obviously. I wanted to speak with the planning board directly regarding the subdivision that you guys approved in South Kalispell by the ball fields. Obviously, first the developer came to you guys with apartments that clearly, thankfully, got shot down for the no access to a major artery and matching the neighborhood. The developer immediately came back and proposed condo units in that area, also changing the setbacks to 100 feet from the shoreline from the normal 200-foot setback. Another push from these major developers to push through and cram in as many housing projects as they can. And the reason I bring this up, and it will tie into when I speak later on this development off of Whitefish Stage. And obviously the planning starts with you guys. It doesn't directly go to city council. I ran for city council, as some of you know. And what I am seeing is these developers coming in here and cramming in as many homes or as many apartments, condos as they can into a parcel and immediately trying to annex it into the city. And what I'm seeing now is at the corner of 93 and alternate 93, the bypass, that complex was county. They had a perfectly fine septic system. And somebody bought them, and immediately the city said, okay, you can annex in, pay us this much, tie into it. And they had Sapphire out there tying into it all summer this year. So now that's another 200, 300 unit strain on our systems that quote unquote can be handled. If it can be handled, then why is our public works system struggling? They don't have enough personnel. They don't have enough equipment. They keep raising our rates. Obviously, council is not in front of me tonight. Otherwise, I would address directly to Ryan Hunter on his statement, claiming the reduce of impact fees correlated with the rise of increased rates. That is not true. That's not how that works. We know that. But we keep allowing all these developers to come in here and, oh, it's okay, we'll annex, we'll take the money. Just annex it in, it's okay. And the reality of it is every portion of our public systems are strained, and we need to start looking at that first. The second thing we have to look at is how many homes we have on the market. We have open apartment buildings that have been built over the last 5 years. Half of them aren't filled. I live on the west side. I see the Parkline Towers. Half of them are empty. So the reality of it is, are we building to just build and allow these people to build? Or are we going to be smart and build homes, not just units? And there was a great quote in the newspaper the other day, which I'm going to read to you if I can pull it up here. And it says, if we settle for a housing strategy that prioritizes units over homes, we aren't saving Kalispell. And quotes by Keisa Davidson. I 100% agree with her, because we're just cramming in more and more and more and letting these developers run over everything because they want to make the most buck that they can on the land. And I'm all for, proper land rights and having your land. But let's be smart about this. The developers, they're coming in here and they're gone. And 5 years from now, I guarantee you half those developers are going to be gone. And we got to focus on Kalispell and what's right for families in Kalispell. We want families to move here and be able to prosper here, and I don't see that. I know neighbors that struggle. I've been down the road with my business where I own my home, but I still struggle at times, and I see it time in and time out. And I'm seeing it in the blue collar industry, at least, that things are dying out. And I see a lot of these guys struggling, begging for work, wanting work, because our housing boom is done. It's been done. And the people who are still building are the greedy developers building multi-billion-dollar complexes to cram every dollar in there. So I'd appreciate you guys just, really thinking about that. And, I don't ever want to live in an apartment or condo. Most people don't. That's not why they move to Montana or move to Kalispell. They want to have that single family home with their family that they can raise their kids in and have for decades. With that being said, do away with this HOA crap. I'm seeing this. It was on, I think, last night's agenda or the two weeks ago. And I glanced over it, and it was a subdivision off of, or out by the LHC pit. And it said, well, they're going to have an HOA. All an HOA does is raise the rates of those homes. It does nothing. We already have city parameters into what can be on a property, what can't be on a property. We don't need $800 fees every month for the subdivisions for single family homes so they can take care of the parks. If we're going to build and we're going to build responsibly, then the city of Kalispell should be able to take care of what they have. And those homes that are there should pay for that. I don't disagree with that part, but having Silverbrook, I mean, their HOA fees are astronomical because they have all this green space, which is beautiful. Half of it's dead, but their fees went from $150 to $800 almost now in that community. And I don't know one single family that's, say the average age is 35 to 45 years old with one or two kids can afford another $800 a month for those HOA fees. So anyway, that's my spiel. I just wanted you guys to hear it. I speak at council a lot. Chad hears it. So thank you guys.
Thank you, sir. Further public comment? Okay, I'm going to close that and move into tonight's public hearing. There's 3 items tonight. First item is file KCU 25-06. Fat Boys Restaurant Casino. Fat Boys has submitted an application for a conditional use permit to allow for the expansion of the existing casino floor area at 1307 Highway 2 West. The proposal involves increasing the casino area from 792 square feet to 947 square feet within the existing 5,500 square foot restaurant casino building. No exterior expansion is proposed. The conditional use permit will be reviewed as a new permit for an accessory casino. Second item is file KCU 25-07. Neil Johnson, Village Loop Multifamily. The request for conditional use permit to allow the development of 2 multifamily residential buildings located at 95 Village Loop within the RA2 residential apartment zoning district. The proposal includes 1 12-unit residential building and 1 24-unit residential building, along with internal parking, circulation sidewalks, municipal water and sewer connections, stormwater facilities, and associated site improvements. The third item is file KCU 25-08, Northwestern Energy Shop Edition. A request from Northwest Energy for a conditional use permit to allow the expansion of the existing utility storage yard and office located at 890 North Meridian Road within the B1 Neighborhood Business zoning district. The proposal includes the construction of a 5,305 square foot building addition to provide enclosed space for equipment and fleet storage. First item.
Good evening, Planning Commission. Donnie McGrath, Planner 2. The request tonight is from FU LLC for a conditional use permit to formally authorize the existing accessory casino at Fat Boys Restaurant and Casino, located at 1307 Highway 2 West. The casino has operated here for many years, predating today's conditional use requirements. This CUP brings the gaming component into compliance with the current zoning while allowing a small interior-only expansion of the segregated casino area. There are no exterior changes to the site or building. Tonight's request is a conditional use permit submitted by FU LLC for the expansion of an existing accessory casino located inside the Fat Boys Restaurant and Casino at 1307 Highway 2 West. The proposal expands the defined gaming area from 792 square feet to 947 square feet, a 155 square foot increase, while remaining below the 20% allowable limit for accessory casino use. All improvements occur entirely within the existing building with no exterior construction, building footprint changes, site changes, or anticipation of use beyond the interior remodel. The CUP brings the longstanding gaming use into alignment with the current zoning standards. The site, located along Highway 2 West, a major commercial corridor that supports retail restaurants and service uses serving local residents and highway travelers. The property is fully developed and includes parking, utilities, refuse, and access to city services. A casino component has legally operated here for years as part of the restaurant use. The project reflects continued investment in the existing commercial building within an established business corridor. The property is zoned B2 General Business, which allows restaurant and bar uses by right and requires conditional use approval for accessory casino uses to ensure compatibility with surrounding development. The growth policy identifies this corridor as commercial, supporting restaurant and entertainment activities with reinvestment in existing sites, exactly what this proposal provides. The casino remains clearly subordinate to the primary restaurant bar use, consistent with the zoning intent and growth policy direction. The proposal expands the enclosed gaming area from 792 square feet to 947 square feet, a 155 square foot increase, which equals 16.9% of the total main floor area, keeping the casino clearly subordinate to the restaurant use consistent with section 27.34.040 of the zoning ordinance. The gaming area remains fully indoors, separated from a dining area by permanent walls and accessed only through the shared public entrance, reinforcing accessory character of this component. This is a completely internal remodel with no building footprint change and no exterior site impacts. Existing signage is legally established. However, any new or replacement signage will be required to comply with current code prohibiting gaming attraction imagery or wording. Site access remains unchanged using existing drive approaches from Highway 2 West. Parking will continue to exceed minimum requirements with 57 stalls provided, where 48 are required for restaurant and casino operations. Internal circulation remains adequate with no changes to drive aisles, entrances, or loading service areas. A sidewalk gap exists along the property frontage. As a condition of approval, the applicant will construct the missing segment to complete pedestrian connectivity along this corridor. The property is fully served by municipal water, sewer, refuse collection, fire protection, and police services, with no new service extensions required. There are no changes proposed to the existing business operations, including hours of operation. This use will continue to function exactly as it does today. All customer activity and entertainment will remain primarily indoors, with only limited outdoor use consistent with the current operation. No expansion of outdoors seating, music, or patio activities is proposed. Fire and building code requirements will be confirmed during the building and interior remodel permitting process, ensuring continued compliance with life safety standards. Because the request involves interior-only improvements, operational conditions will remain essentially the same as today. No measurable increase in peak hour traffic or neighborhood impacts is anticipated. This surrounding businesses are commercial in nature and compatible with the restaurant casino use. The proposal represents ongoing investment in an existing building and consistent with the longstanding commercial character of Highway 2 West. Conditions focus on ensuring compliance with gaming separation standards, signage requirements, building safety codes, and pedestrian access along the frontage. No exterior construction occurs aside from completing the sidewalk. With the recommended conditions, staff finds the proposal meets conditional use standards, remains compatible with commercial surroundings, and brings the established gaming use into full zoning compliance. Staff recommends approval of Staff Report KCU-25-06 as finding of fact and recommended approval of the project to the City Council subject to the listed conditions. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
I noticed one of the conditions of approval was an addition of some missing sidewalk along the frontage. Do we have any site plans that show that?
Not yet. That will be during the building phase.
Okay.
So because we've, in the last couple of weeks, gone through and had, there's been a lot of discussion about conditional use permits, whatnot. So I believe one of the aspects of a conditional use permit for accessory use casino is that the intent is that it shields the gaming stations away from the general public. So just to be clear from the aspect of the process for revoking, if that were to be, let's just say if they were to go and start going against that criteria and putting them out in the general public in the restaurant area, that'd be a violation of the conditional use permit. That would be something that could go through and start the process of notifying them that they're outside of that criteria.
It could. I think one of the amendments that council included on that was a date in January, and this would get approved presumably if it moves through prior to that date, because it'll be in front of council on January 5th. So
Yeah,
it
it
was
was,
kind of in
yeah.
that transition point. I think, arguably with CUPs, just a little bit of history, we went through the public hearing on that before with that text amendment, is that the way that it's currently written in the zoning ordinance was kind of general and intended to allow a lot of different types of actions that might be done on that, including potentially revoking, but I mean, that's kind of a separate question that was out there, and there's a new process that we would go through with that. But I think there's always been the opportunity to present something as a violation, so the violations of the zoning ordinance or civil infractions, and trying to approach something in that direction, or a violation of the building permit, because those conditions get attached to that. So I think there's still a wide range of different ways that the city could approach that if they were violating some of those conditions. And yeah, hypothetically, we could go under a number of different ways of approaching that.
Yeah, and I'm not asserting that that's going to be the case here or anything like that. Actually, I don't think we've ever had a problem with an accessory use casino, but just from you're right, that change was on the 15th.
Right.
Of January. So that was kind of my reason for the question, but they're falling under before that. So
They would fall under the current,
yeah. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and open this up for public comment. Any public comment, step to the mic and state your name and address.
I guess I'll speak a few times because I want to bring light to this situation, because your wonderful city planners over here can't figure it out. Could you go back to that photo of the overview of that sidewalk so I can point something out? Would you be able to do that, Chad?
Oh, if you want to roll it back, I mean, yeah.
That works perfect. So, and I've pointed this out, and Chad's heard me multiple times on this, but one of the things that I'm seeing across the city is our city's over 100 years old, and things aren't perfect. And anytime somebody wants to change something inside a building, we use the words, bring it up to current code. And in the matter of safety as far as exits and sprinklers and that sort of thing, 100% for it. I agree with that. Where I find a major issue in this flaw, and this needs to be fixed, and it's one of the things that I ran on for small business owners, because obviously Fat Boys has been a part of the community for years, and I'm not saying anything against the casino. I personally don't care for large casinos all over the place, but that's my opinion. Where I have a problem with the city is that they're making a business like this, or say a new business were to move in, and now you need sidewalk, you need new entrances, you need all brand new landscaping. Oh, and if you have rock in your landscaping, it's got to go. Sorry. And it's costing small business owners tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars to quote comply with the city. Would it be nice having a sidewalk there? Sure. But realistically, what are we gaining? 50 feet, 80 feet of sidewalk there? And there's nothing on the other side. It could be 30 years, 40 years before anything happens along that road. Yet you're making a current owner pay an extraordinary amount to do this stuff. And this is coming from a contractor that makes money on that stuff. Because I just did one on Idaho this year. And I went round and round with it. And that's why I wanted to point out this photo, because I could be wrong if I remember, but I drive by somewhat frequently. That front landscaping, I believe, is all rock. So if you really wanted to bring it to code, quote, the city code, you'd make them rip out all that rock and put mulch in. And I would 100% disagree with that. It's absurd. Currently, it was passed, I want to say it was 2008 by the former mayor, that no rock shall be in a public, public landscaping. So Chick-fil-A, Target, any public building that people can go in and out. It's actually in the city code. And I've argued with them on this because in instance of this, say you were to make them change it to mulch, they're not necessarily going to maintain that mulch. Mulch has to be done every year. And business owners, especially in the commercial setting, aren't doing that. So it'd be something to look into, especially, last little bit you have on council, Chad, because, and I've talked to Sid on it, and he even agrees with me that it's insane. So I would, out of this, whether you approve it or not, I don't care, but I would say pull that sidewalk contingency out of there, because it's just an extraordinary cost for a small business owner that the city gains nothing from it other than a 100-foot section of sidewalk that goes nowhere. There's no sidewalk on the other side. There's no easement on to the west there, the Bojangles lot. There's nothing there. There's nowhere for that sidewalk to go, so you're not getting anything. So anyway, wanted to bring that to light from a small business perspective. So
Thank you. Further public comment? Okay, I'm gonna look to the commission for a motion for KCU 25-06.
I would move that the Kalispell City Planning Commission adopt staff report number KCU-25-06 as findings of fact and recommend to the Kalispell City Council that the conditional use permit be approved subject to the conditions of approval outlined below.
I'll second.
Discussion? I guess, Jared, from what we heard in public comment about sidewalk,
I actually did go and look at a more updated aerial, and there is now sidewalk from the bypass. There's a small section missing by the mall, so this would actually connect the bypass almost to the mall.
Correct. So yeah, there's a new dentist office and things that have gone in, and with that construction, there's sidewalk really this is one of the missing pieces that would connect that entire corridor. So, yeah, it's been city policy for a long time. You know, certainly there's a cost to it, but there's a cost to not doing it as well. I think Evergreen's a good example of that. They didn't have sidewalks in Evergreen, and the taxpayers ended up having to cover the bill for $1 million in sidewalks plus through Evergreen. So it is one of the things that we get, as you sit in the seat and as planning commissions, we get probably more comments about sidewalks or lack of sidewalks than we do almost anything else. So this is a mechanism to do that, and it is a city standard, so.
And I generally don't need to like say anything here or there, but the context is that a bar that has a sidewalk that's attached to places is a good business etiquette because no one always wants to drive, right? And so part of this concept is, I think, having an ability to have a corridor for walking for a facility that serves drinks is a good option. And so my point is yeah, it sounds like a good idea. And it may not be perfect now, but 20 years from now, it might be perfect.
What aspect of code is triggering that, being that it's an indoor remodel, is triggering the addition of the sidewalk? Is it just a part of the conditional aspect of it because it's a conditional use?
That would be part of it, but what you're looking at doing is usually a business is making an investment like that to increase the amount of traffic that's coming in. And so what you're looking at doing is mitigating what that impact is. You know, as Josh mentioned, you know, you could have an increase in pedestrian traffic coming through here because more people are going to be coming in to what they're hoping is an expanded business opportunity, which is why they're investing money into that. So it's mitigating that, it's keeping people out of the road, and that's what the tie-in is there.
And it is a highway as well, you know, so in this instance, it's not even a local street. You're talking about a highway that has more traffic, more speeds and things like that. So it is the pedestrian concerns. And like I said, it is the city standard. It ties into our transportation plan, our growth policy, and it is through the building permit process. When you are investing in a building like this, it is one of the things that if it's not in place, that would be a city requirement.
And beyond that, in this particular situation, it's actually a connection that the owner wanted to make. So it wasn't something that was being foisted on them. It was
Got it.
something that they
Okay.
wanted to do anyway, so.
Any other discussion? Okay, get a roll call.
Pip Burke,
Aye.
Joshua Borgart,
Yes.
Kate Walker,
Yes.
Rory Young,
Aye.
Chad Graham.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. I'm gonna move into file KCU 25-07, Neil Johnson, Village Loop Multifamily.
Mr. President, before we start, I need to recuse for the next two items.
Thanks. Just the three amigos.
Thank you, Commissioners. Donnie McBath, Planner 2. Tonight's request is a conditional use permit submitted by Tetra Holdings LLC for a two-building multifamily residential development located within Village Heights Professional Center subdivision along Village Loop. The proposal includes one 12-unit building and one 24-unit building for a total of 36 dwelling units on approximately 2.04 acres. The project includes internal parking, shared circulation aisles, sidewalks, and recreational open space with full architectural and engineering review to occur during building and permit and site development review. Municipal sewer will serve the development while domestic water is provided by Evergreen Water District. This is infill development within an established subdivision consistent with the intended residential evaluation of this area. The property is located at 95 Village Loop and consists of two platted lots, Lot 1B and Lot 2, which will need to be aggregated into a single parcel before issuance of building permits. The site has been previously graded and is largely free of environmental constraints, including wetlands and floodplain. To the east is a steep bluff approximately 40 to 50 feet in height, which is classified as a geotechnical sensitive feature. A submitted geotechnical investigation indicates that the bluff is stable under normal loading conditions, but requires separation of structural loading and stormwater facilities from the crest bluff under seismic conditions. These recommendations will be incorporated into final engineering design. I will cover in more detail in future slides. The site is zoned RA-2 Residential Apartment District. Multifamily development is allowed through the conditional use process, and the design meets RA2 dimensional requirements, including height and setbacks. The growth policy designates this area as urban residential, which supports multifamily housing types in areas served by full urban services. The development furthers community goals of compact housing, efficient use of infrastructure, and improved access to services and transportation. This location is fully within the city's service area and inside the annexation boundary. The buildings are internally oriented with the shared parking courts and pedestrian pathways. Sidewalks will provide connections throughout the site as well to the public sidewalk network along Village Loop. Parking and amenity areas are screened, and additional landscaping is required to soften project edges and enhance compatibility with the surrounding properties. Architectural design, building materials, and finishes will be reviewed during the site development approval to ensure compliance with city standards. The site sits along the upper edge of a prominent bluff with a slope about 40 to 50 feet high. A geotechnical investigation found the bluff is stable under normal static loading, but marginal under seismic loading. Because of that, the engineer recommends no surcharge or structural loading within roughly 40 feet of the bluff crest, and requires that all stormwater detention, retention, and infiltration facilities be located at least 150 feet from the crest. The site plan you see here incorporates those requirements by keeping buildings and primary circulation outside the 40-foot zone and placing stormwater facilities well away from the bluff influence area. And I'll just show really quick what we're talking about is right here is that 40-foot setback line where the bluff is, and the bluff would be up in this area here. Primary access to the development will occur from Village Loop, an existing public street designed to serve the mixed-use character of this neighborhood node. Internal circulation aisles provide access to both building and maintain emergency service access. Parking is designed in compliance with RA2 standards at a ratio of 1.5 spaces per dwelling unit, requiring a minimum of 54 spaces for 36 units. Final confirmation, including ADA stalls and striping, will occur during building permit review. The development falls below the full traffic impact study threshold, but does require a Category 0 TIS memo, which will evaluate trip generation during turning movements and driveway placement to verify safe operations. Sewer connection will be provided by the City of Kalispell and water service by the Evergreen Water District, each with available system capacity. Services will be extended into the site consistent with applicable standards. Hydrant placement, fire access, and fire flow will be reviewed with the fire department during engineering plan review. Stormwater design must comply with the city's standards for design and construction and incorporate the geotechnical requirements restricting facilities from being located near the bluff. Other services, refuse collection, power, gas, and telecom are all available to serve the property. The two-building arrangement provides internal open space and pedestrian-oriented layout that reduces visibility of parking from the street. Landscaping and screening elements will ensure compatibility with adjacent parcels, most of which are undeveloped hillside or established office commercial uses. The building heights are within RA2 requirements and comparable to other residential forms in the area. This project reinforces the existing development pattern along Village Loop, a transition area where professional services and residential uses coexist within a local service corridor. Overall, the design and the scale are appropriate for the surrounding environment and consistent with the growth policy's direction for this district. Conditions focus on standard utility and engineering requirements, including stormwater compliance, submittal of a Category 0 traffic memo, and a final verification of parking and pedestrian access. A key condition requires aggregation of both plotted lots to ensure the development functions as one parcel. Another requires adherence to the geotechnical report, including setbacks from the bluff crest and separation from the detention infiltration facilities by at least 150 feet. With the recommended conditions, staff finds the proposal meets the conditional use criteria, maintains compatibility with the surrounding area, and is supported by the growth policy. Staff recommends approval of the staff report KCU-25-07 as findings of fact and recommend approval of the project to the City Council, subject to the listed conditions. We'll take any questions if you have them.
Is there any questions, staff?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Is there any plan for the rest of that property to the east or to the west there on lot, is that 1B? Because it looks like there's a significant portion of that lot that is slated to be empty, question mark?
No, so next to it, there's an office complex
Uh-huh,
that's going to be to the left of that, and then everything to the right is actually going to be infilled by the development.
okay. Okay. Next question, things like parking lot island requirements, amenity spaces for residents, will that all be handled like in the next phase of design? We're not worried about that at this point?
That's correct.
Okay.
On this slide right here, when you have the sanitary sewer and, I guess it might, the yellow might be
Gas.
gas.
It's getting rerouted.
Okay, yeah, so that's in there right now.
Mhm.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah,
And some of that question incorporate recreational amenity and how that works? Yeah. Just to clarify on that, each unit would have 500 square feet of land with recreational value or the equivalent value, so you could have, fitness rooms or gazebo or, barbecue areas or different things. That's typically incorporated into the final design going through site review with the building permit.
okay. Okay, I'll go ahead and open this up for public comment. Step to mic with your name and address.
I'll actually talk what I came to talk about. Kyle Voigtlander again, 844th Street West. I would deny this. Bottom line. So, one, that subdivision or that complex area is all office buildings. There's no apartments within a mile of that. There's condos, but there's no apartments. So it's not mixed, does not go with the area, per our planners over here. So that's one, and then it be a darn good view, I can tell you that, looking into Glacier, but it doesn't fit the neighborhood, and then it's proposed, was it 12 units on there? How many bedrooms, how many people are going to be in there? We know apartments, they fill every room, at least one person typically. I can almost guarantee you that is not even close to enough parking. And yet again, another plan proposed with terrible, terrible parking lots. And I've spoken on it before, but where are you going to put the snow? How many spots are you going to lose because you have to put the snow somewhere? And I am liking the improved drainage. I will say it matches what you guys approved at Casa Mexico, as far as drainage goes. But if you actually go to the ratio, how many handicap spots you need and where you got to put snow and everything, there's not going to be enough room there. I've parked on that street because I often go to offices up in that area, and there is a lot of room, but if you start parking cars on both sides, there's not going to be room. the other issue that I have with it, and again, another topic I've brought up, where's the closest fire station? It's First and Hun Ranch. Two high traffic areas they got to get through to get to that area. When I was working on Idaho this year, every single day there was EMS and fire going that direction up the hill. Every single day. So what I would propose is say, figure out whatever logistics need to happen with the city. But if we're going to build a third fire station, which I know our fire department wants, is instead of building it out on farm to market, we build it out in this neighborhood, whether it's a full fire station or specifically EMS. That neighborhood there, not only from the doctor's offices, but also it's tends to be older people that live up in that area. That this is kind of the last available subdivision to have any of that up there. So those are my concerns that I see. Obviously, this is preliminary. Things can change. I see tons of things wrong with this plan, so I don't know who came up with it, but everything from gas lines to parking lots. So those are my concerns. And then again, back to the multi-unit buildings. Are we here to build homes, have homes built and have families come into town, or are we just building units to build units? So thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ron Jarvis. I'm the owner of the property at 85 Village Loop, just to the south of this proposed development. I share the previous gentleman's concerns about parking. While it may meet the standard of 1.5 per unit, the reality is if you have two adults living in a unit, they probably have two cars. And you know that, and I know that, right? Village Loop there's no parking allowed on Village Loop. Where are the extra vehicles gonna go? And, certainly when it snows and all that, they're gonna lose parking spaces. I don't see how this is workable as it is proposed right now. That's my main concern. One other thing I'll mention, when I built my building at 85 Village Loop, I was required to submit a very expensive geotechnical report from a geotechnical engineer stating that my development was not going to adversely affect the slope stability. I certainly hope that the same requirements will be in play here, because I'm right next door and the slope stability matters to me. And then finally, I share the previous comments about the report said that this is in conjunction with the mixed use character of this neighborhood. I don't see how that's true. The current neighborhood is all professional office space. So I don't think that's an accurate statement that's saying it's in character with this neighborhood. It isn't. I'm not saying that the zoning doesn't allow for residential. I'm just saying it's not in character with how this neighborhood is set up now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Katie Ramey. We own 60 and 63 Village Loop, so we were notified of this meeting. Just a few comments. I mean, I have no problems with anybody doing what they want with their lot as long as it's within, conditional use. You guys have done your work. My concerns are the parking. It's a number of units. 36 units is a lot of units, and if 1.5 spaces per unit is what is designated, I don't think that's realistic. And there's a lot of businesses in that area. We keep adding more businesses in that area. there's a lot of traffic. So my other concern is access on and off of Whitefish Stage and then onto East Evergreen as well. Those are both very narrow roads, and we have kids crossing for school, before school, you know, between 7 and 8 a.m. And then we have kids in the afternoon too. And there's a crosswalk right in front of Whitefish Stage and Riverview Greens. And right now there's huge puddles. I called the city about it last week. There's huge puddles on either side. So kids are going around the crosswalk and they're walking right into Riverview Drive to get in there because they have to walk through the water otherwise. So I see more traffic being a problem. You know, we would like to do something with our lots at some point. So full disclosure, we do own lots in there. But I do have concerns with the number of units that are proposed here. So just take that into consideration, and also the safety for kids with that being an elementary school right there. Thank you.
Thank you. No, can only do one. I'm sorry. It's all right though. Go ahead.
Neil Johnson, Summit Ridge Drive, Kalispell here. I just want to address some of the concerns that
Sir,
everyone,
can you address the board?
oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Just want to address some of the concerns that came forward. I live and work here, and my family goes to public school here, and we're looking at doing, the reason we want to do condos is for exactly some of the reasons that have been pointed out. We want to provide housing for purchase that people can put equity into their life, that's affordable. In the valley right now, single family dwellings are, I just bought one last year and it was expensive. And being close to Edgerton, we anticipate that we will have younger families that will want to use this building as a stepping stone into something else. As well, my contention would be that the RA2 zoning here existed before almost any of these buildings went in with this type of density in mind, and the fact that no other buildings like this have gone in yet only serves to help the mixed use zoning for this area. And we do have more than enough parking spaces. Not that we won't potentially seek cross parking agreements, but most of our traffic is going to be in the evenings, whereas most of the business traffic obviously during the day, which I know that the zoning intends for that type of traffic flow, because our buildings will have different traffic flow. And we did actually spend quite a bit of money on the geotechnical report before this was even done. We had Alpine come out and drill all new test holes, and they were able to use that data that was collected this fall in conjunction with data that's been requested in the past by the city for lots like the ones next door. And yeah, I understand the concerns, but I know for one, I'm here to stay. I'm not planning on being gone in 5 years. I plan on spending the rest of my life here. My kids are very connected in the high school and the middle school and in the community, and we plan to live and serve here and hope to be a positive force in the both economic and social community.
Thank you, sir.
I'm also the owner of the Village Loop, 85 Village Loop, right next door. We purchased the land from the Schultz, who is the farmer who owned it for years and years, and I know it was mixed use, and I know what his intention was with that mixed use. It was to be more similar to the patio homes that are just north of that area, just north of that farm. So it wasn't intended for 3-story units. I mean, there is a residential part, commercial residential, that's in the process of being built right now. It really looms over the office building right next to it, and it looks, I think three-story is too much. We're concerned that the sewer is not, I would really like the city to go over that with the people in that area and like really assure us that the sewer is up for this. Every winter, I've had the city come out several times and look at, it's an ice rink. It's like some cars can't even get through that area, right where the entrance is going into this apartment building. You can't even get through because it's just backed up. And the city has assured me that it's not a flaw, it's the way it's designed to slowly drain, but in the wintertime it doesn't drain. And so it's either ice rink or it's so deep that smaller cars can't even get through it. So there's definitely a problem right there. Anyway, yeah, I think it's too much for this area. It is not in keeping the height. If it were down like a patio home to a 1-story, I can see the mixed use, but the 3-story is a lot. It's a lot for that area.
Thank you. Further public comment? Okay, look to the commission for a motion for KCU 25-07.
Sorry, trying to get to the word. I move to approve, move that the Kalispell City Planning Commission adopt staff report KCU 2707 as findings of fact and recommend to the Kalispell City Council that the conditional use permit for Village Loop multifamily project be approved, subject to the conditions of approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion is seconded. Discussion or further questions, perhaps?
The two things that I guess were spoke about with the water buildup, sounds like there's been quite a few complaints consistently. Can you explain a little bit of that so that I know a little bit more about why that occurs, especially in that type of area, and so also maybe the goods and the bads of the new construction and how that would generally be applicable to the scenario?
So I guess I'm not familiar with the specific details of what's going on. That'd be kind of more of a public works function. It sounds like the storm drainage would be kind of the main issue there. So I'm not sure exactly how it's supposed to function.
Sure.
Typically you do see situations where whether it's an individual lot and the storm drainage coming off of this lot, you would notice in the southwest corner there's a storm drainage facility specifically for what's going on there. But the general city rule is that you're not having the runoff go off at a faster rate than what you'd have pre-construction with post-construction. And so sometimes that does mean that you've got retention or detention that's happening on the property and then infiltration that's going down. So I don't know the specific engineering component of what's there, but other than Public Works would be reviewing, and there would be an engineered storm design for the specific site that would be coming through, and Public Works would be reviewing that as part of the building permit.
And as far as the design of, let's say, a drainage field like this, how would that compare to how the natural land is currently? Is it better, or generally is it just the same?
Well, again, you're trying not to force that runoff. I mean, if you put an impervious area, you don't want to have that runoff shooting off onto the adjoining properties. And so sometimes having that stay on site and infiltrate down is kind of what you'd have to do there. I think that there's a little bit of a distinction here between probably the existing conditions that are being talked about are more of the subdivision as opposed to this specific site and how this site gets developed. Sure. So while there's some kind of a relationship there, they're also separate items, and what they'd be responsible for would be their storm runoff coming onto the site, not necessarily what a pre-existing condition is from the subdivision that was developed X number of years ago.
Sure.
But still, some of that tie-in would be something that Public Works would have to consider as part of the review when it comes in with the fully engineered plan.
So the main fear, or the fear that I heard, was generally that the land itself is a possibility of where the water comes from and then freezes up. My mere question is a drainage field better than natural land?
I'm not sure what you mean by drainage field per se exactly.
Have here at the
Detention.
whatever you call it, the detention area.
So
is it
whatever
better?
is engineered has to handle any water that would be above the natural rate of runoff
So
for
it is-
an undeveloped piece of property.
So it is better.
It is technically
Just trying
better.
to super simplify
Yeah.
it so we all
Super
like,
simplified, it shouldn't be worse than
Will
what
not
it
be
was.
worse.
Right.
thank you.
Yeah.
And then
That's all I-
sometimes involved in that, you have
Good.
treatment of the stormwater too.
I think sometimes like we try to complicate it so much that
Yeah.
that word phrase is super powerful because people are worried about it getting worse.
Right.
Cool.
Well, on a developed piece of property also, maybe not to really belabor this, but a developed piece of property keeps any of its runoff internal.
Yep.
And so holds it. And
So with the numbers, it doesn't trigger it. It's 300 vehicle. So with the numbers, it doesn't trigger it. It's 300 vehicle trips per day or more would trigger that. So I think it was
a zero.
a zero.
Just a minimal impact.
So it has
to be proven. And with the geotech, I mean, there's going to be a slope stability
Yeah, it's already
aspect of the
been done. Yeah.
geotech's been done.
There was good comment that the planning commission can consider though in regards to Whitefish Stage there and pedestrian crossings. I know there is actually a number of flashing beacons along Whitefish Stage. If there is residents, Edgerton is right there. So if kids were going to school where Village Loop intersects Whitefish Stage, there's not a crossing there, which wouldn't be identified in the TIS, but is something that has been brought up in the past with the planning commission with, I believe it was Reserve at Johnson Ranch. So that's something the planning commission can consider on that as well.
I think that would be a valid addition in this instance.
So, I guess one of the comments, as this is mixed use, I think I either read it or I heard it said in the staff report, but that the general area of this, in this particular part of the zone, has developed out in a certain way, as it is professional office basically. Does the addition of this into that use, does that further the characteristic of multi-use?
Yeah. So the way
Or
that
once
that's
a
laid
pattern
out.
gets established, do you stick with that pattern?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's important to keep in mind this isn't a PUD that's out there. So you're looking at the basic zoning that's out in the area. It's B1, closer to the intersection, and RA2 on the outside. So B1 is, allows retail, small scale retail, allows apartments and offices and all sorts of things. The RA2 is the RA is residential apartment 2, so it's our higher density residential apartment zone that also allows offices. So the entire intent and what's set up under the zoning and allowed under zoning is the RA2. So it's a little bit different than a PUD with maybe what the original developer might have intended in there, where you would have more specificity when it's coming in. When you're looking at mixed use, there is one CUP that just went through just to the south of this that was a true mixed use that had, it was smaller scale, but it had 4 apartment units above a number of office suites, a couple lots to the south of this. A lot of times when you're looking at mixed use too, though, you're looking at the greater neighborhood area, not necessarily just something that's within 150 feet. And when you look at that, there's different offices and churches and schools and single-family homes in the greater area that's out there. So you're looking at a mix of that, but the underlying zoning, when it was annexed in and given that zoning, set the stage for that. The zoning was exactly the same. The allowed offices and apartments at this density, and actually would allow a much higher density if somebody wanted to design that, would be consistent with what the zoning has been out there since it was annexed in.
It's something with the CUP that the planning commission and council can consider, the neighborhood compatibility. However, in general, the idea that inserting residential into this area not only is generally allowed by the zone, but it also, you could argue, these people may work right there. It can reduce trips, they may work in the vicinity. But yeah, neighborhood compatibility and all that's part of it. There, like I said, to the south of here, there's a larger residential commercial building going in. But certainly I recall a number of multifamily units, like say Husky Apartments there, on, was it Glenwood?
I think so, by the open mall.
Glenwood, I remember when those
The
went in, it
Alcorp?
was, what's that?
This is kind of similar to Alcorp over there
Yes, yes.
in the front.
Yes, so essentially at the time, that neighborhood was all just kind of big B2 commercial, and it's like, well, we're inserting residential in there. But it since then has somewhat integrated and made that neighborhood more mixed use, where it wasn't just kind of large concentrated commercial. It's inserted some residential in there to make the neighborhood not necessarily a mixed use building, but it integrated some other residential uses into that neighborhood. So this would be a similar situation.
And then about parking, as far as, I mean, it's a space and a half. I mean, that's,
Space and a half is what we require there. As a side note on that, state law, within 10 months won't allow us to require more than one. There's a lot of things that have happened in the last two legislative sessions that really force the city's hands in some of these situations in terms of what we can require. And in some ways, even whether we can require a CUP in a situation like this. So 1.5 is what our standard has been for quite a while. But it will be dropping based on state law in the very near future in any case.
and so will this process.
And in terms of some of this process too, right?
And that law is what?
I can't remember the exacts. Are you talking about in regard to the
380
parking?
what?
Well, there's 382 in
382?
terms of
Oh, okay.
process. The parking
Cool.
is
I just want to
different.
make sure you said it again.
Okay, yeah.
You guys know what that is
Yeah,
now?
Montana Land Use Planning Act.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Fair enough.
So, what about the pedestrian crossing? What do you guys feel about that?
I would like to at least consider it. If there is no specific crossing there to serve this area, and we're very close to Edgerton at this location, to get across Whitefish Stage would be extremely difficult.
I think there's one on the south end of the Nazarene Church. And then the next one, I think, is up past Edgerton.
And that's,
So there's that whole stretch there. So my only concern with that would have been
Too
too
close.
many in a row.
Yeah.
I think it's, yeah. I think it's appropriate.
I think it's appropriate, and we're talking about 2 times a day, where that is gonna be an issue for people on the street. And when it comes between children being able to cross the street safely to and from school and cars, I'm going to choose the children crossing the street safely.
How are crosswalks like noticed and integrated into the transportation grid, I guess, if you want to call it that?
Yeah,
So you just don't throw one in there and then people start crossing, and yeah, it's kind of the same thing. Does there have to be a warrant for putting something like that in?
It would need to step through, and there's certainly places that they want to put them and places that they wouldn't. Typically you hear all the time from Public Works, you don't want mid-block crossings. So there would be some detail on it specifically where something like that would go and how it would tie into the existing or in potential future development that would be there in terms of the infrastructure. But as Jared said, it's certainly something you can include in there if you wanted to soften it with, if deemed appropriate by Public Works or in a location to be determined by Public Works,
Yeah.
I think that would be appropriate if you wanted to go in that direction as a recommendation.
So it would be, we would be adding it as a condition of approval or a recommendation
can
for a
do
condition of approval?
You can do you can do a motion to amend to add a condition of approval that, however you wanted to treat that intersection there, you know, if there was, whatever the improvements would be. I would probably say to coordinate it with
Public Works?
with Public Works, and do they need MDT in that stretch?
I'm trying to pull it up here. Any discussion other than that? Do you want to make an amendment?
Yeah, I would like to make an amendment. So I have to read the whole spiel again? Yes?
No,
No?
just the amendment to add
Okay.
a condition at the end. I can't remember how many.
Okay,
That's what I
I
was looking-
would move to add an amendment to the CUP. What is that number again? Sorry, I lost track of my stuff here. God bless it. It's at like the very end. Sorry. Move to amend KCU 2507 to include evaluation of a public crossing to be or of Whitefish Stage Road to be coordinated with Public Works Department.
Condition number 15, I guess.
Yeah, as condition number 15.
Seconded.
Any discussion on that?
No.
That works. Okay. Okay, roll call for the motion? Yeah. The amendment?
Pip Burke.
Aye.
Kate Walker,
Aye.
Joshua Borgart,
Yes.
Chad Graham.
Aye. Okay, now back to the main motion. Any further discussion on that? Roll call?
Joshua Borgart,
Yes.
Kate Walker,
Yes.
Pip Burke. Chad Graham.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. On to our third and final item, file KCU 25-08. I guess I would also mention that I believe these items are coming up on council January 13th.
Fifth.
Okay,
January 5th.
5th. Okay, yeah, 5th. Okay.
Good evening, and thank you again, Planning Commission. Donnie McBath, Planner 2. Tonight's item is a conditional use permit request submitted by Northwestern Energy for the expansion of an existing non-conforming utility yard located at 890 North Meridian Road. The request was reviewed under the standards of Chapter 27 of the Kalispell zoning ordinance, including use of compatibility, site design, and required conditions. The proposal is an expansion of an enclosed utility building and associated yard area, continuing an existing long-standing operational use on the site. Staff will provide an overlay of the project scope, zoning context, public services, site improvements, and conditions of approval recommendation. This request is a conditional use permit submitted by Northwestern Energy to expand the existing utility yard facility at 890 North Meridian Road. The expansion adds 5,305 square feet storage to the existing 13,975 square feet building, reaching the maximum allowable cumulative 50% expansion permitted for legally established non-conforming use. The project scope is consistent with what was previously reviewed in 2020. However, that authorization expired when construction did not commence. Operations remain the same with no change to hours, use, or staffing levels. A CUP for the same expansion was approved in 2020. However, that permit lapsed due to the lack of construction activity or continuous progress. This new review reflects updated conditions along North Meridian, a corridor that continues to evolve as mixed commercial and service environment. The property consists of an existing utility yard and an administration office facility on a 2.88 acre parcel with frontage on the North Meridian Road and Glenwood Drive. The B1 zoning district is intended to serve as a neighborhood scale commercial buffer between residential areas and more intensive commercial uses. The area includes a range of office, service, and residential uses. To the south are retail and the fairgrounds. To the west and north are townhomes and multifamily neighborhoods. And to the east is Flathead Warming Center and commercial uses. The urban mixed-use growth policy designation supports service-oriented employment uses while requiring design compatibility with where adjacent to neighborhoods. The proposed addition aligns with this land use intent by improving the building's functionality while maintaining compatibility within nearby residential areas. The project site is level and fully developed with existing parking, utilities, and internal yard circulation. No wetlands, steep slopes, or floodplain issues exist. The building meets B1 setback and height standards today. The addition does not alter compliance. Adequate access exists from both Meridian Road and secured service entrances off Glenwood Drive. The addition allows more equipment storage inside the building, reducing existing visual operational impacts from outdoor yard use. However, additional buffering is necessary due to adjacent with residential neighborhoods. Required improvements include solid fencing and/or evergreen landscaping along the north boundary and Glenwood frontage to soften the edge and block views into the yard. Landscaping must be added to the rocked areas at Glenwood entrance to reinforce the transitional role of the B1 district. All the municipal services are currently connected to the site, including water, sewer, refuse, police, and fire protection. The proposed addition includes a new 4-inch fire service line to support fire protection needs, a new 4-inch sewer service line connected to Glenwood Drive, and a sand oil separator to support shop and storage operations. Stormwater from the new roof and yard improvements will be collected and treated before being discharged to the city storm system. Fire service is provided by Kalispell Fire Station 61 with standard response times for the area. These improvements will receive full review through the engineering and building permit process to ensure compliance with the city standards. The expansion does not increase public traffic. Access to the storage yard remains restricted. A northern driveway on Meridian will be removed and reconstructed to meet city standards, including curb, gutter, and sidewalk continuity. Glenwood Drive will require full upgrade to an urban local street section, including sidewalk, boulevard, lighting, drainage, curb and gutter, along with full frontage. New fire service line, sewer upgrades, and stormwater treatment facilities will be completed during engineering. The current hours of operation and staffing remain unchanged. Outside activity occurs only for emergency response. The addition brings more equipment indoors, reducing visual impacts, noise, vibration, dust, and outdoor lighting compared to existing operations. No impacts to schools or parks, and police fire service levels remain standard. The use has existed at this location for many years and continues to match the business service character of the North Meridian corridor. Conditions focus on ensuring compatibility with the adjacent neighborhood, improving the pedestrian and street frontage, and incorporating buffering in transition areas. The addition utilizes the full cumulative 50% expansion allowance for this non-conforming use, meaning no further additions will be permitted. Infrastructure upgrades will support safely and neighborhood design expectations. Staff recommends approval of Staff Report KCU 2508 as findings of fact and recommend approval of the project to the City Council subject to the listed conditions. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Yep. Okay, I'm gonna open this item up for public comment.
Oh, yeah, Arthur Fredheim, 249th Street East. I just had I guess sort of a point of clarification. I know there's been a lot of discussion in Montana recently about Northwestern wanting to build out data centers and, rate increases to support that. And from what the presentation, It sounds like this is unrelated to that, but I just wonder if we could clarify if those are actually, if it is unrelated, and other than that, I don't have any objections.
Further public comment?
Drew Digman, I'm with Jacola, the architecture and engineering. This does not have anything to do with the data centers. This is just internal storage for bringing some of their equipment inside.
Thank you. Further public comment? Okay, look to the commission for a motion.
I move for Kalispell Planning Commission to adopt staff report KCU 25-08 as findings of fact and recommend to the Kalispell City Council that the conditional use permit be approved, subject to the conditions.
Second.
Discussion. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, my only concern was the stormwater and that was addressed, so I think that's good.
A roll call.
Pip Burke,
Aye.
Joshua Borgart,
Yes.
Kate Walker,
Yes.
Chad Graham.
Aye. Motion carries. I'm gonna go ahead and close tonight's public hearing and move into old business.
Okay, so old business, there was 3 items that were on the agenda. Last time there was Northwest View, which was the subdivision up the north end of town. That went through city council. North Meadows was the, I believe 44 unit townhome development that was just off of Ashley Creek. That was approved by council as well. And then there was the text amendment relating to the revocation of CUPs. And that went through, I believe, on a 7-2 vote. And second reading of that would be pending at the next city council meeting.
New business?
So on the 13th, January 13th, we'd have presumably 2 items. We did get an application in for Mountain View Phase 2. So that's a plan unit development that's on the north side of Foys Lake Road. So they've got a plan unit development overlay that kind of lays out the framework of the subdivision. They're coming in and doing the specific preliminary plats. So Phase 1A has already been developed with homes being built in there. Phase 1B, they'd be doing the infrastructure this coming year, and then this would kind of get the planning going for Phase 2 in terms of the specific design. The second item that we're hoping to have, and that would be kind of dependent in part on the work session, would be doing the public hearing on the land use plan under Montana Land Use Planning Act. So tonight would be the last work session. And then if we get direction from the commission to move forward with that, we'd take that forward to a public hearing on that night too.
Okay. Anything from commission?
Members of the public, thank you for being here tonight as we present Kalispell's updated land use plan, Planet 2045. Kalispell stands at a defining moment. We are growing faster than any micropolitan city in the United States during the post-COVID era. And with that comes both opportunity and responsibility. Malupa, all chapters. Tonight, I'll walk you through how this plan responds to the Montana Land Use Planning Act, Malupa, and how it sets the direction for responsible growth, protecting and what we love while planning for the future. In 2023, the state legislature passed Senate Bill 382, Malupa, and for Kalispell, that shifted the planning landscape. We now must adopt a modern land use plan by 2026 that includes a future land use map and growth projections, updates zoning and subdivision regulations to align with the plan, ensures continuous public participation, coordinates planning with the Flathead County and service agencies. Kalispell Land Use Plan, Malupa, all chapters. Most importantly, Malupa was driven by housing affordability. The goal is to create more housing choices through zoning reform while preserving our incredible environmental and cultural heritage. Malupa, all chapters. This presentation tonight demonstrates how Planet 2045 meets every one of those requirements. Kalispell has always been the heart of the Flathead Valley. Since its founding as a railroad division point in 1891 to today as the regional hub for commerce, healthcare, education, and government. Malupa, all chapters, the vision we've created with our community reflects that. A resilient, welcoming regional hub that preserves character while planning for growth. That means a strong, diverse economy, housing options for all residents, parks and connected greenways across our city, infrastructure and services that keep pace with growth. Kalispell's land use plan, growth shouldn't change who we are. It should strengthen that we already makes Kalispell special. The plan isn't just written by staff. It's built from hundreds of voices across the valley, from business owners to longtime residents to organizations on the front lines of housing. We heard one thing clearly: growth is here and we must manage it well. Malupa requires public involvement up front, not only when the development hits someone's backyard. That shift in engagement is already helping build trust and transparency. This summer, as this slide shows here, we did a lot of summer engagement. We met with different groups of people, did different outdoor events, gathered feedback, really engaged with the Malupa and the engagement of the community, and tried to get the message out there between our downtown, our sense of community, how our access to parks and trails and open space. And then we asked a lot of locally owned businesses and business owners where they stood and how the city could help. Today, Kalispell is home to more than 33,000 residents, a 40% increase since 2010. We're also a regional service center. Our daily population often exceeds 65 to 70,000 in peak seasons because workers and visitors rely on our services, retail, and healthcare. Growth is visible everywhere. Subdivisions expanding outward, infill, downtown, major healthcare and commercial investment, all signaling that Kalispell is a dynamic and evolving community. Growth brings opportunities, but also responsibilities. By 2045, we anticipate 23,000 new residents. That translates to 9,500 to 10,000 new housing units that have been approved as well, just a side note. That level of growth requires expanded infrastructure, expanded fire, police, parks, and schools, enough development capacity in the right locations. Planet 2045 ensures we are fully prepared. Growth must be strategic, not scattered. This plan focuses development inside of our annexation boundary, where water and sewer services can be efficiently extended, along corridors and centers that support transit and walkability, while protecting sensitive open spaces and rural edges. The map sets a compact, efficient urban form that reduces sprawl and protects the valley's natural landscape. Quality growth is not just where we build, but how we build. Policies emphasize walkable, multimodal neighborhoods, corridor beautification, and design standards, downtown as a thriving economic heart, housing choices for a range of incomes and lifestyles. These principles ensure that as Kalispell expands, neighborhood character improves, not declines. Chapter 3, Housing, the number one issue. We heard this loud and clear. Housing defines issues of our time. Median home prices have more than doubled in 5 years, and vacancy rates hover near 1%, one of the lowest in the region. We must produce 475 to 500 new homes every year just to keep pace. And we're keeping up. Kalispell's land use plan, without this plan, housing will continue to become more exclusive, pushing workers and longtime residents out of the community. Solving housing requires multiple solutions working together. More housing types, townhomes, small lot homes, accessory units, multifamily, infill where infrastructure already exists, partnerships that unlock workforce housing, reinvestment in aging neighborhoods and existing housing stock. This is about expanding choice and ensuring housing is attainable for teachers, nurses, tradespeople, and service workers who are essential to our community. We partnered with Public Works, Fire, Police, and Parks, and schools to accurately plan for infrastructure and service needs. Water system upgrades are ongoing. Wastewater capacity expansion is necessary. Stormwater planning continues to evolve. Public safety staffing and facilities must keep pace with growth. The plan supports effective, coordinated capital investment. Kalispell is the economic engine of the Flathead Valley, and our plan strengthens that role. We are diversifying employment, healthcare, and education as strong drivers and commercial corridors continue expanding. A strong economic base helps sustain public services. This plan supports business growth while safeguarding quality of life. Growth must be balanced with protection of the valley's natural environment, our water, resources, wildlife corridors, scenic values, and recreation access. The plan incorporates hazard migration, strategies to reduce wildlife fire risk, prevent flooding impacts, and avoid environmentally sensitive areas when planning future development. Chapter 7, Future Land Use Map. The Future Land Use Map is the central tool to MLUPA, requiring for guiding how and where Kalispell grows over the next 20 years. It reflects the anticipated and preferred pattern and intensities of development based on our population projections, economic growth, and local service needs. Each color on this map represents a policy designation that will guide zoning decisions over time. This is not today's zoning map, but it's the direction for the future annexations and rezonings as development occurs. Here's what the key legend categories mean. Commercial, red along arterials, provides areas for general retail, services, and display storage uses along major corridors. Expansion should only occur when existing commercial districts are substantially developed, preventing leapfrog patterns and ensuring access, circulation is safe for vehicles and pedestrians. Neighborhood commercial small orange nodes. Smaller, walkable retail service clusters, 3 to 5 acres in size, located half to 1 mile apart, intended to serve daily neighborhood needs with strong bike, pedestrian connectivity, and buffering to fit surrounding residential areas. Urban mixed use, corridor nodes and transitions. A compatible mix of higher intensity residential, office, commercial, and light industrial uses. Encourages compact service and employment centers, approximately 2 blocks on each side of urban highways with multimodal connections and transitions into nearby neighborhoods. Industrial, the purple, near rail and highways. Areas for manufacturing, warehousing, and utility operations, located where transportation access is strongest and buffered from residential areas. Rail-served uses encouraged around Glacier Rail Park, non-rail uses along Highway 93 South Corridor. Urban residential, yellow inside city limits. Higher density housing, up to 12 units an acre, including small lot single-family townhomes and multifamily forms. Supports compact development and walkability near services. Suburban residential, the light yellow beyond urban core. Transitional housing, areas up to 7 units acres with clustering and open space preservation as appropriate. Supports outward growth only where public utilities can be extended efficiently. Public, quasi-public, open space, the green areas. parks, schools, civic buildings, resource protection areas, and stormwater or hazard migration lands, ensures access to recreation, and protects natural features as the city growth expands. Overall, the map prioritizes urban residential infill first, then suburban transitions outward, with mixed-use corridor nodes and industrial areas near rail and logistics, ensuring growth supports services, transportation efficiency, and neighborhood compatibility. Chapter 8 is where the plan becomes actionable. These are the tools we will use to develop the growth policy, including zoning and subdivision updates for Malupa alignment, capital improvement programming, and the extension of services plans that ensure growth occurs where infrastructure can support it. Because of these elements, move us directly into the implementation steps and requirements following adaptation or adoption. I'm going to turn it over to PJ, who will walk through Chapter 8 in more detail and then continue into Chapter 9, which covers amendments of how the plan remains flexible over time. PJ?
All right, thank you. So all the chapters that he's covered already, we've kind of looked at in some of the work sessions. You know, we're up to our 15th or 16th work session over the last year as we've been stepping through this. Chapter 8 is one that we hadn't, so we just kind of wanted to go through that because, like you said, the rubber meets the road here a little bit. Basically, what Chapter 8 does is kind of looks at how we implement that plan. So it's one thing to have the plan, but then what steps are going to be taken in the future so that that plan is something that doesn't just sit on the shelf. One of the primary ways of doing that is through the zoning regulations. It's definitely something that we need to update our zoning regulations as part of our Malupa deadline coming up in May. But it's also an ongoing process where we want to continually look at that, and the commission and planning board before it would take a look at the zoning ordinance every now and then and see if there were any updates that we needed to do. And that should be a continuing part of the process. Related to that, item 2 was housing strategies. As you're aware, there are 14 housing strategies, and we're required to adopt 5 of those. We specifically listed in here the ones that we were working on. We talked about those in a number of different work sessions in the past. One of the other items under housing strategies was also doing a housing study to provide some further analysis and planning based on that study. That is something that we likely have some grant money available to work with, but we do that as part of the implementation plan, hopefully later this year. Similar to that, subdivision regulations are also something we need to update under Malupa. We'll be bringing that forward this spring, as well as the zoning regulations to coordinate primarily the updated process that we would have, since that process for a subdivision review dramatically changes under Malupa. The next sections, as you get into chapter 4 and 5, just kind of talks about land use plan amendments and how those are done. There's different ways that you would get up and do those. Some of them would be initiated by the city, some would be initiated by petition, whether that was by a certain percentage of the electorate or by an individual property owner with a development project coming forward. Ones with the city, it kind of depends. From time to time, changed circumstances might mean we'd want to take a look at the plan and give an update. At least every 5 years, you have to make a formal review of that. But those sections address procedures for that. Item 6, there's always neighborhood area and issue plans. So that's where or annexation policy, for example, is an issue plan. How it's a little more detail in the general plan, how we would approach that. But neighborhood and area plans, looking at, say, the downtown plan, core area plan, West Valley plan, Highway 93 North plan. There's a number of them out there that are actually incorporated, and we'll touch on that a little bit in chapter 9. But those can be amendments that get added in when we adopt one of those plans. We incorporate that by reference into the growth policy historically, but land use plan, we would do that as well. Item 7 was extension of services plan. This would be something that we would need to update to align not just with the land use plan, but also some of the facilities plans that are being updated. So there's updates coming through on water and sewer. Stormwater is also having a plan that's coming through as well. All those will be incorporated into the land use plan itself, but relying on that and doing an extension of services plan update. Item 8 is again related to that, capital improvement and facilities plans. Those facility plans that are coming through later this year, mostly worked through at this point with the consultants, would be incorporated by reference into the land use plan. But we'd also follow those capital improvement plans that are part of that to make sure that facilities and infrastructure keeps pace with development. Urban renewal districts is certainly a tool. That's item 9 on here. We've got several of those in the city. And then lastly would be any other plans, studies, or reports that may come up that would help inform Planning Commission, Council, and the public as we're looking at things, and from time to time could be incorporated into the land use plan as well. So anyway, that kind of summarizes chapter 8. Like I said, that's kind of how we step through on everything else. Are there any specific questions on
Yeah,
chapter
so
8?
when it comes to like the zoning aspect of it, with 382, the conditional use permits turn into administrative.
Right.
State law, so I don't know if I'm confused about this. I don't know if they changed this in the state law or if they forgot to. The state law is that conditional use permits are by grace of the council. Well, if it goes to administrative, who sets the conditions of the conditional use permit if it doesn't go to the
So it's-
council or planning board?
Yeah. So, first of all, some of that's in a little state of flux because of the pending litigation in
Sure, yeah.
Supreme Court. But in general terms, what it says is that, the planning is kind of done in conjunction with the land use plan. Site-specific reviews would be done by staff. So if we
Yes.
continue to have conditional use permits, they would be reviewed and approved, and whatever conditions would apply would be done by staff and wouldn't
Right.
go to council at all.
So my question then is, so you're getting to where, when it comes to zoning, should there be criteria created for some conditional uses out there that we have, paint shops or that gives staff something to bounce off of?
And
when it
there's a number of
becomes a-
uses that we do. Casinos have got that.
Mhm.
Marijuana dispensaries are in there. Kennels are in there. There's some with multifamily that's in there. Although multifamily under a lot of the state laws kind of getting pushed to being permitted in most of these zones as opposed to a CUP. So we already have those sections, and that's certainly something that can be expanded upon as we're moving forward on that. It also may involve really looking at the conditionally permitted uses that we have. Is that something that we want to limit a little bit more or expand on? But the way that state law is set up is that would go through staff. Any of those staff decisions, whether it's with a conditional use permit or a subdivision, can get appealed up to the planning commission and then council and then district court. So it doesn't end with staff, but that's who makes that at least initial determination on approving or denying or conditionally approving a project.
Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions on chapter 8?
You can have public comment at the end.
So, go ahead.
Chapter 9. Here we go. Chapter 9. This chapter ensures the city remains flexible. Neighborhood scale or topic specific plans can be developed when needed. For example, around highway corridors or major redevelopment sites. The growth policy may also be amended when private development proposals bring forward beneficial ideas consistent with overall goals.
So, and just to kind of add to that, in terms of chapter 9, that's where we would be incorporating those other plans. So when we talked about the neighborhood plans, the annexation policy, those are listed in the land use plan itself or sometimes incorporated by reference. But that's how we bring that into the larger land use plan when there's a specific neighborhood or area plan that we would need to do that with.
So then the next steps. Following tonight's Planning Commission review, staff will continue refining the document with feedback from the Commission, partner agencies, and the public. We anticipate the final version advancing to the City Council early 2026 to meet Malupa's compliance timelines and guide land use decisions for many years to come. If you have any more questions, we're all happy to answer them. We appreciate your time and involvement, and we're getting close to having this thing done.
Until 5 years' time.
Correct. Well, remember, it's a living document, so we're always in there continuing to work on it.
Well, since we're kind of at the end of this process a little bit as it pertains to, the chapters and everything, thanks to the staff for, the work you've put in on this. I've been really vocal in our meetings about how I feel about 382. I know there's probably some good things about it. I'm not behind it. I really do think it's going to take a long time, and there's going to be a lot of confusion out there, with our residents as it pertains to where did this decision come from? Well, what the heck, where was the public hearing? Where was, on a lot of these things, where was the public process on a lot of these things? I guess that's what I'm saying is cutting out the public process to the extent that they have was.
We see, right? There's always a symbolism in things. That is a big train. Or is it? Is it going to hit those people if they're like, the image is that sometimes we have to recognize even the name Lupa is an unfortunate thing that we have to say out loud.
Recording in progress.
Cool.
Yeah, that's how it goes. I actually enjoy the exchange where, like tonight, I'm not saying that I apologize. It wasn't trying to be, trying to slow everybody down, but I think just the basics of a quick answer for the consciousness of like, hey, I'm worried about this water right here. Like, this sucks. Like, we have to deal with people slipping. The words that were being used, I'm not saying they're more complicated or they confused people, but to be able to have somebody ask the basic question, is this going to be better or worse? Because the design is very helpful, right? That was, and I don't know if you guys paid attention, but their faces changed. They actually, one lady was like, oh yeah, it's an engineered thing to make it better. These are the things that we are not going to be able to be afforded. And I'm not going to be political, but I don't like politicians. So there you go.
Okay, public comment?
Kyle Voigtlander, 840 4th Street West. Obviously, you've heard a lot of my spiel, but Joshua, I actually want to give props to you for your comment just there, because I agree with you, and Chad, I think we agree in the sense that this isn't quite the right thing to do. I didn't hear about it in legislature, and I'm actually pretty well involved with the stuff that goes on there, knowing people at the state level. But one of the things that was brought up to me by one of our council members, Sam, was that there's 15 amendments that you guys can pick from and have to be adopted, and if none get adopted, then all 15 get adopted. Does that sound correct? Okay, what are those 15? Because I have not seen those publicly put out. So I don't know if you guys have it and can put it up.
Had it at several work sessions.
But the other thing as well is I see what's going on because I pay attention to it, because I like to be involved in it. But majority of people do not see this. I've spoken on it multiple times. So unless you're following what's going on in the city, which I would say probably 80+% people don't really follow it till it's something in their neighborhood that they're concerned about. They don't even know what this House bill is at all. Like they don't. And that scares me a lot. And I'm not saying don't adopt it, because then we're really screwed. And I think that's where you're upset about, Chad. And I agree with you on that. One of the things that I was told about was parking, and that an amendment in there had to be adopted, and that it would get rid of off-street parking. And I think somebody brought it up earlier when we were talking about the apartments. And I don't know who brought that up at legislature. It's about the dumbest thing I've ever seen. We obviously clearly have a parking issue. We clearly have a housing issue. We are growing. I don't believe we're growing anymore at the rate that our city planners are claiming we're growing at. Because remember, they're looking at the last 5 to 10 years. Well, what's happened in the last 5 to 10 years? COVID happened. And now we're starting to slow from that. I know a few months ago, and I haven't looked recently, but we had 700 single family homes available within city limits of Kalispell. And although our growth policy might look at areas outside the city and how the city might expand, it doesn't mean that the city's going to expand out there. That being said, that brings me back to, what are we really trying to obtain? Are we trying to just cram people in because we're growing, or are we going to try to do this right? For example, and it actually reminded me when this photo came up right behind you on your screen, that the train sitting there, it's something as simple as that. The Parkline Trail went in, which I think is great, since those tracks aren't used anymore. But you have a corridor of what was industry. We have absolutely zero blue collar industry in city limits of Kalispell, as far as buying and selling material, contractors, shop spaces, any of that. We have pushed it all out. Not saying that we can't get it back, but for example, my business, I do landscaping excavation. I don't need to be downtown, right? But it would be nice to be closer to my house. And the closest shop I can get is like LaSalle, looking for a shop. And so if we really want to build, we talk about people in the blue collar industry wanting to, them to be able to afford to live here. And Kalispell hasn't done that. So in that growth plan, what can we do to increase homes to families if we're going to increase homes, but also how can we get the industry back in Kalispell so those people want to be in the city of Kalispell versus living farther out, if we're truly going to grow at the rate we're going to grow. On the train subject, when they built that, I'm a big railroad guy, and that train was actually supposed to sit in front of the depot. That was the original plan when that Parkline Trail was built. And for whatever reason, it did not end up there. So the plan never fully followed through. Now we have other issues with homeless and abandoned properties and so forth along the trail. If we look at, I think it's Cardinal Distributing, the old rail yard building that's on Center Street, it's sit empty. And I see it every week, it's still on MLS for rent. And basically nobody can move in there because we've put such harsh regulations on everything. We can't even use the buildings that we have. Perfectly fine, stable building, but it doesn't meet quote city standard now because it's a 80, 100-year-old building. So I worry about this whole thing. I think we're all worried about it. We need to be very smart with what we're adopting. I don't know what exactly the 15 amendments are. I've Googled everywhere for them and can't find them. And that'll bring me into what this planner number 2 over there said, which often lays back in his chair. But we've involved the community. Who in the community? The only thing that I have seen that's community involvement that has been put out to the public and clearly put out to the public was Parks and Rec. And they put out a flyer that said, hey, we're hosting this open house and we're hosting, 3 or 4 of them at this time. I think they did an ice cream social in the park. And they asked, what do you want to see in your parks? What uses do you have? And, the typical, they do it MSU all the time when they build new buildings. You know, do you want more green space? Do you want more trails? You know, what can you use so they can move forward with a plan for the future? That was not done here. So the community involvement was pretty minimal from what I can see. And like I said, I'm pretty well involved compared to most people into this stuff. I don't obviously come every single week, but so I worry about that. And I think that I don't know exactly when it has to be finalized by, but I think we need to do some better action to get community involvement in that sense. And then in your slide, you had talked, there was a slide that broke down areas of usage and what they're being used for. And I'm worried that we're going to adopt, say, you know, an R2 or something, or an R3, and that area is better suited, you know, commercial, or vice versa. Perfect example, Silverbrook. I've talked on it before. They just, right before the election, they approved to do multi-use buildings, or yeah, multi-use, I guess it would be, shops below and condos or apartments above. And although much sounds like a great idea, there's nothing out there. You have a gym and a play place. Everything else is single family homes. Now, maybe town does move that way and grocery stores get built, but shouldn't we be doing that first? And I have seen the catastrophic failure of cities that don't do that. City of Bozeman being one of them. And they're essentially, if you look at us, we're about 10 years behind the city of Kalispell, is what the numbers show. And the city of Bozeman, excuse me. And the city of Bozeman built all these homes. They built townhomes, duplexes, fourplexes. It didn't matter. They were shoving them in. Oh, now we need a new high school. So they built a new high school. Well, they had nothing out there. Every single one of your grocery stores was on the major artery. So it'd be like Idaho and 93 by the DMV. That was your major artery. And from there you had 6 different grocery stores, but they were all on those major roads, which sounds great to the people who probably originally put them there, but everybody's being shoved into a small area. So with this plan and being able to project and plan now, it's somewhat of a good thing. But we need to remember not to get ahead of ourselves. And we've been growing so quick that everybody's just, okay, more homes, more apartments, more condos, everything. And we haven't really caught up physically to say, okay, are we going to withstand what we just built? And a great person to talk to on this is Kisa, because Davidson, she was fantastic on understanding that as a builder. But what I see, I mean, this new Costco area, about the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I'm sorry. I don't know what went through your heads to say, okay, let's go through with that. It's pushed Hudden Ranch north. It's clogged up 93. Now we're adding more commercial buildings up there. It's a train wreck. And I know there's things with the state that the state wants to warrant the numbers before they do their end of things. I think we need to go back to them and say, no, we need to fix this before we go in, or make it a condition of the extension plan that, hey, before we go out, this must be done. And that starts with obviously the planning board, because by the time it gets to city council, Chad's seen it. There's 100 people in this room screaming at him. So I had the discussion with Sid last week on that Costco area, and not saying Costco didn't need to be bigger. Obviously, it's a well-used store, but was it a smart placement for it, or could we said, hey, no, let's find a better location. We could always throw it back and say 2 locations. A lot of towns have that, so it splits it up. And that's what I'm worried about. We're so, hey, we got to push and get this done fast because we're expanding. And I truly don't think we're expanding that fast, considering how much is on the market and what's available. So And then I guess another question on this is what we do. Say this goes through, you pick your things. Is that set for 5 years and cannot change? Nothing can change on it, or is it still, if you're R3 and want to go R2, or however that works, can those things be changed as they go through?
PJ or Jared, I guess I've forgotten that. I can't. I think there's a process to where there are amendments that can go through and happen to the growth policy, but I can't quite remember.
Right. Well, there's a couple different ways that can come up. One is that every period of time, there's a formal review that goes on, and you need to make a determination as a planning commission as to whether or not the entire thing should be reopened.
Right.
There can be specific things that come up. If there's change of circumstances that we need to look at it ahead of time before that mandatory formal review comes up. And that can be initiated by the city. I think it's like 15% of the electorate could sign a petition, or there can be an individual.
It's pretty well locked in, though. I mean, once it goes through, it's
once
pretty
it goes
well
through,
locked in.
it's locked in. But there's growth policy amendments that are done
right
frequently, and they just need to be initiated. So one of the parts of the plan, in both in terms of the plan and the regulations that are based on the plan, is just kind of a continual review of what's going on. But there is a formal determination that the planning commission would have to make and forward to city council every so many years, I believe 5 years.
But as far as an amendment process, what does that get? Because I've forgotten what that amendment process is. There's like a threshold or something.
Yeah, well, like a couple of things that we've done, like Tronstead, for example, was one where there was a growth policy amendment we did. A city initiated one around the intersection between Airport Road and the bypass. And basically it goes through essentially, there's one or two little more steps, but it kind of goes through the same way that you would with annexation or subdivision right now. It comes in front of the planning commission, then it goes to city council. City council with the growth policy amendment does their own public hearing on it as well before it gets approved. So that's the basic time frame that you have. If it's something that's more major, like a neighborhood plan, that might be 6 months or a year of putting a plan together and looking at it, depending upon how technical that is. Like the Main Street Safety Action Plan, for example, took a pretty long period of time. The annexation policy was the same thing, that worked through a number of work sessions before there was a final policy that was adopted by council and incorporated into the growth policy.
Just the water and sewer facility plans we're working on will essentially be an amendment to this, because you're then, to the speaker's point, if we find that there is a higher demand on industry and we need to do a growth policy map amendment to accommodate industrial growth, there's a process to do that. We have the data, we have the stats, comes before planning commission, goes to council, very similar to the process we have now in that regard. It's just, for example, right now, if the map shows suburban residential and somebody comes in and it's already in the city, it's already zoned R3, and the development meets R3 standards, it'll be done by staff. We're not gonna have any of the public process that goes along with it, but it's certainly a process to continually evolve and amend it if necessary.
Yeah, okay.
So if you're in your growth policy area, and obviously we don't have the map in front of us, but say it's Church Drive to Farm to Market, and that's, 80% of that's farmland still. That's in your growth area, but it's still county. Would you consider all that R2, R3, or is it up to the jurisdiction as somebody wants to be annexed into the city?
Those are all great questions that come in and ask us. If you want to do that during a work session, we can be here for hours if we're going to talk about every nuance. But if it's any annexation, it's still going to have to go through planning and council, because it's not even in the city. We'll do that in accordance with Malupa. But if it's already in the city and it's already zoned, that's where the administrative part takes place. But anything else is still going to require going through planning commission and council, annexation, initial zoning, PUD. That is not administrative. That has to go through the council. But when that comes forward, we will be doing it in accordance with that or whatever the growth policy map is at that time.
that makes sense. It seems to me, and I think where we struggled at the beginning of this when it came out was we have to make a plan to get it, little bit of ahead. I think was what, this Gianforte's thing was we've had this massive growth in Montana, but cities aren't tentatively, not all cities are doing what they should ahead of time to say, hey, this is what we need to do. With that being said, I'll leave it with these last two things of one, we need to be sure that we have adequate services to all areas of our community, that we work with our volunteer departments and paid departments throughout the county. So just shoving a fire department in because, well, there's more homes here, it's not plausible because you still have to hire those people, you still have to pay those people. So there's a lot that goes into that. But when adopting this plan, if we say, hey, this many residents, hey, we need to hire X amount of firefighters and police, we need a second police station, which I think we need by now, from what I've read in the newspaper here the other day, and then also protect the neighborhoods that we have. So, for example, the west side, there's a lot of still vacant lots that pretty much only developers can afford to buy and build, and they just want to cram everything in right to the lot lines, put two-story homes. And my worry with this plan, is that we're gonna lose that control of the neighborhoods, and somebody's going to be able to put in an apartment building right next to a bunch of single-family homes, similar to down by the ball field. So, anyway, that's my 2 cents on it. I don't really have any other questions, but let's be smart about this, and I think that more needs to go out to the public before a final decision. So I apologize I didn't show up before, didn't even know they were happening, so I just happened to be here. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'll adjourn.